after we had our last alumni gathering, I learned there were all kinds of side chats going on while we were having the overall discussion. And now I just want to start messaging all of you to participate in some of these. But I am so excited that all of you have joined us this evening. Many of you know me well if you are UNH Franklin Pierce alumni, and some of you are joining us as new friends tonight. And for those of you who don't know me, I'm Megan Carpenter, Dean of the University of New Hampshire Franklin Pierce School of Law, with our world-renowned IP program and IP alumni as well. So it's so great to see you. For so many of you whose faces are here, I recognize here. And for those who are just joining us, we also welcome you now into our family. What I will do right now is just kind of give an overview of the next hour or so, and then we'll kind of go in. I'll tell you a little bit about the program, and I'll introduce to you Greg Leastman, who is our admissions guru and knows all of the real information about the program as well. And then you're going to get to hear from our hybrid JD coordinator, the coordinator of the program, Dan Swiner, and also from one of our students in the first cohort, Brett Feeney. And so you're going to hear from a bunch of different voices. And while we go along, please feel free to use the chat for questions as they arise. And we'll kind of take questions sort of towards the end of people's remarks. And I'm happy to moderate that discussion and quickly scan the chat as we go along. I joined Franklin Pierce 3 years ago, and for me, the law school has always been the gold standard. So I started out as an IP practitioner and then have taught intellectual property and technology subjects at various law schools, starting different types of programs over the years. And anytime as an IP practitioner that you meet someone who went to UNH Franklin Pierce, it's somehow, you know, they introduce themselves and then just like a little bit later, it just comes out that they went to Franklin Pierce. And for me over the years, it struck me as so unique that this school is truly part of people's identities in that way. And as I taught in other schools and created programs in other places, I always thought, like, how do you create that magic? What is that thing? And so I'm truly honored to be a part of that thing now and to help shape its future. One of the things that makes us most special is truly our alumni network. We have alumni practicing in more than 80 countries and in many ways running important parts of the IP infrastructure around the world at leading companies and firms, and also in IP policy working in governments such as in areas like Argentina, Nigeria, and Taiwan. And you know, I guess I should step back a little bit and talk about the creation of the program before I get into some of the logistics. Because when we created the program, it was born of a lot of discussions with law firms in part. And what I'm hearing from law firms is that they want associates who are going to hit the ground running. When I graduated from law school, firms just kind of knew that they were going to lose money on you for a few years, and they knew they were going to have to train you up. And now law firms really want to hire people and to send employees to law school that are going to add value right away upon graduation. So I was talking with an alum who is a managing partner at a leading global IP firm in a city in the US. And he said, you know, I sure do wish I could send my employees, my tech specs to UNH Franklin Pierce, but it's not in the commuting distance, and it wasn't something that would work out with their schedule. And so instead, they would end up going to a local part-time program, which was fine, but not quite the kind of education and to build the kind of network and the kind of value that a top school can provide. Also, firms have been complaining about, you know, sort of no matter what, if they have an employee that's in law school, they've got to get out the door at a certain time to decide sometimes between finishing a project and making it to class. And that sometimes doesn't work with a law firm schedule or with an in-house position that where there are particular projects that are going on. It also is something that, as I talked with USPTO employees, they were spending a lot of time, if they're interested in going to law school, they're spending a lot of time commuting back and forth to a part-time evening program. So maybe they would be working during the day and then commuting, sitting in class all evening. And if they have families, it just doesn't quite work very well. So we started really listening to the needs of businesses, law firms, the PTO that want to educate the next generation of lawyers. And we thought, we want to get them the education that's going to help them add value right away. And we wanted to get it to them wherever they are, so they didn't have to be located in Concord or Manchester. We also wanted to be able to build our students' network while they're in school through connecting them with our fabulous alumni network and with potential clients, people who might be colleagues and clients and things while they're in school. And then we also, I guess number 5, wanted to give them the flexibility so that at their jobs, they could work on that, intense piece of litigation that was coming up, or that big project that is coming down the pike, and be in school at the same time. Okay, so I guess with all of those things, we wanted to create a unicorn. But I'm pretty sure that's what this program is. It's mostly online, and it enables working professionals to get a top education in IP and technology and education law from wherever they are. They don't have to leave their jobs or move their families across the country. Not that New Hampshire isn't a lovely place to live and spend some time, but this way we can kind of break through that brick and mortar and reverse the law school student relationship and take our education to people wherever they happen to be. And the program allows people to time shift. So many of the classes are taught asynchronously. So if you happen to be an early morning person, which seems crazy to me, but you can work on some things early morning if that's when you learn best. For me, I'm a mom, and when I come home from work, I like to spend a couple of hours with my kid, and then I get him to bed. And then my sweet spot is that kind of 10 to 12 at night time when, the emails slow down and I can really focus on my own. But this program really enables people to kind of learn when they learn best. And if they've got that intense thing going on at work, they don't have to leave, your law firm or your business or your work at the PTO to go to class at a certain time every day. So we bring students to campus 4 times a year for pretty much a long weekend at a time. It's 4 to 5 days at a time. And we try to schedule it around a weekend so they don't miss very much at work. And those times of year are kind of August and October, March and May. And they spend some really intense immersion time together. And I'm sure that our hybrid student, Brett, will tell you more about that in a little bit. But we offer complete parity for all of the student services. We offer bar support wherever students want to take the bar. We offer career services support that start working individually with the students from day 1. We offer opportunities to be on law review and moot court, to participate in so many of those moot court activities that many of you all did on the call. And here's the cool thing that involves, I think, some of you on this call as well. One of the things we get to do is to not just introduce these students to the full-time faculty, but to you all. So many of you like to come back and give lectures or maybe teach a little bit, but you can't come back to Concord, New Hampshire every semester or every year. So this program enables our students to learn not just from our full-time faculty, but also from people who are on the cutting edge of this stuff, practicing in these areas around the world on a regular basis. So they learn to think like lawyers, but they also learn to be lawyers in really concrete ways. We also offer them tech support 24/7, you know, and everything you can kind of imagine from that support standpoint. The program runs for 10 terms over 3.5 years. So it runs year round, kind of 12 months at a time. And students, after they finish all their first year classes, they could speed up if they want, they can slow down if they want, depending upon what's going on at work or in their home lives. And the way we look at it is that working professionals that's not a negative to the classroom. That brings something great to the classroom. So Brett's experience that you'll hear about, I hope he'll tell you a little bit about his work, but he gives examples from his work. He's a patent supervisor. We also have patent examiners, marketing specialists, doctors, PhDs in life sciences. And that diversity of experience in the tech and IP space, when they bring that to the classroom, that leads to better discussion and better problem solving. And it's really cool. It's like what they bring to the classroom is something extra that enhances the peer-to-peer learning experience. Another opportunity we were able to give them is the opportunity to go to Silicon Valley. We had an experience in January, and I think Chris Reed is on this call, and he helped out with the course in Silicon Valley. What we did was, and we took a group of students, both residential JD students and our hybrid JD students, and we took them for a week. We had classes. Mickey Minhas, who's our incoming IP Center Director and also was Chief Patent Counsel for Microsoft. We had class for a week in the Microsoft offices in the Valley, and then brought in IP leads from Fox, like Chris Reed, who talked about copyright, litigation, media law, and places like Uber and Google, Apple, Samsung. The students did kind of a mock negotiation of the Apple versus Samsung case, and then afterwards they got to hear from patent counsel for Samsung and the head of IP for Apple separately. We kept everyone separate. And so the students have this incomparable experience that when they go back to their firms or they go back to their company, they have a great practical sense of not just the law, but also how business strategies work, which is something that we find helps junior associates give value right away. You may have tons of questions about the program, and I'm happy to, I'll stop. I can go on forever. I promised I would do this in less than 20 minutes, so I'm just making it. So I'm happy to answer questions, but let's hear from a few other people. Greg Leastman is our admissions specialist. He's fantastic at what he does. And Greg, maybe if you could give a little bit of an overview of kind of the admissions process and how it works. Is it like other JD programs or how's it different?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Happy to answer that. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks everybody for joining us. And yeah, I'm in my second year now of working with UNH in the Hybrid JD program on the admissions side. And I've been doing higher education admissions for over 20 years. And this has absolutely been the highlight of my career. Building and putting together that first class was such an exciting thing because, I was talking to people like Brett who had wanted to go to law school and didn't think that they probably could because of their job and their family and everything else. So it's opened up the door for so many people to go to law school. And, as far as the application process goes, it's similar to what we do normally. Students will apply and go through LSAC as all of you did. And one thing that's cool though is this is definitely a program for the non-traditional student. To give you an idea, last year in that first class, we had around 45 students or so that started, and the age range went from 26 all the way up to, believe it or not, 71. that started the class. And so with, experience all over the map, but all having an interest in IP and bringing, a lot of different perspectives to IP, which is one of our favorite things about the class. And so, yeah, we're currently still accepting applications, believe it or not. And you may know somebody that's thinking about going to law school and thinking it might be too late for this year, but we are still accepting applications for fall 2020. The pandemic obviously has thrown a bit of a wrench into the admissions process. And so the LSAT was canceled in March and the LSAT was canceled in April. And so what LSAC has done is they have introduced something called the LSAT Flex, where, believe it or not, you can actually take the LSAT at home with an online proctor. And so we have people that are taking the LSAT in May that actually just took it last week at home. They were the first group. They were the guinea pigs to take LSAT at home. And then we have June students taking it, and we're still accepting the July LSAT. So if you know anybody that is looking to go to law school, they can sign up for that July LSAT. It's the week of July 12th. And the deadline to sign up is Monday, June 1st. So that's coming up in just a few days. So feel free to pass that word on that the UNH Hybrid JD program is still looking for students, still have a few spots. They can sign up for that LSAT at home and go through the regular process. We also accept the GRE, which a lot of law schools don't. So if somebody doesn't want to take the LSAT, they have the opportunity to take the GRE also at home. And so, we are excited about building this second class. The first class has set the bar so incredibly high. It's going to be tough for that second class to top that or even meet that, but we're putting together some fantastic students. And, I'm always happy to speak to anybody directly about the program and what it takes to be admitted. And we're just so excited about bringing in our second class. And, again, thanks all for being here. And I'm happy to answer any questions for you at the end of the chat tonight.
Thank you so much, Greg. We did have one question in the chat. Lars is just asking about the goal for the size of the entering class this year. The ABA capped us in our first year at 50. And it was interesting because a little trivia, someday this will go down in the annals of history, but we received approval from the ABA mid-March, and we had to land our students in the door in Concord in the middle of August. So we had a very short period of time to make it all come together. And Greg was instrumental in that. But we, in that process, we had about 200 applications just in that very short period of time for such limited slots. So we had an entering class last year, as Greg said, of about 45. And then this year, the ABA has raised our cap to 100. It's actually the first time they've raised a cap for a hybrid program in the first year of applying, which is a testament to the confidence that the ABA has really in our program and the structure. I don't know whether we will get to 100. We're really committed to making sure that we're bringing in, really a great caliber of student. And so we look at applications holistically, and we just want to make sure that they're a really good fit for the program. So we anticipate the application process to kind of go well into the summer, but we do have some limited room left for students as they come forward. Let me introduce Dan. Speaking of things that happen in a short period of time. So Dan Swiner, it's a miracle he's still with us, because he came in, and he's one of those people we think, he started work. How many days was it before the first immersion period?
9 days.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So he started with us 9 days before we're bringing everybody onto campus to basically run the program. And so within the first week, it was like he'd been here forever and he knew all the answers right away. He also is pretty unflappable and go with the flow. So that helps a lot. Dan, do you want to tell us a little bit about kind of your perspective on the program and what you see?
Sure. Thanks for the introduction, Megan. It's my pleasure to be here this evening. Thank you all for those that are in attendance. I'd like to speak a little bit to the student experience. As Megan said, my time at UNH is about as long as our inaugural cohort in the hybrid JD. I landed in Concord, New Hampshire about 5 days before my first day of work, August 5th, and then they all came in on August 14th, and we were all as bright-eyed and bushy-tailed as the next. And that's where their experience started, and that's where every hybrid JD student's experience is going to start. On campus, in Concord, New Hampshire, just like a residential student. They'll arrive on campus, they'll get their photo IDs taken, they'll swear their oath of professionalism. I think I see Justice Convoy in the audience. We can't wait until the next swearing-in ceremony this fall. They meet face-to-face with their classmates, their faculty advisors, the various offices on campus like financial aid, career services, the registrar, and they take a blend of the tradition of what UNH does really well, what the University of New Hampshire Franklin Pierce has already done well for years, and then blend it with the new necessities of being a distance education learner. So, they'll listen to the dean's remarks at the beginning of orientation, but then things will diverge a little bit as they get subscriptions and logins to the various law library resources. The hybrid program has completely revolutionized the law library. We have digital access to practically every resource, and the ones that we don't, we're able to access an interlibrary loan with libraries across the nation for our students to make sure they can get hard to access materials. That's just one example of the parity that I strive for every day. Anytime I find any kind of disparity in the residential experience and the hybrid experience, that's my job to level that off and make sure that student groups, clubs, organizations are all giving students that might live in Phoenix, Arizona or Dayton, Ohio, the same opportunity as the students that are here in Concord. Right after orientation, it's time to dive right in. They start their first immersion period. So as Megan had described earlier, the immersion periods take place in August, October, March, and May. Right now, they're all in Concord, New Hampshire, but there's been discussions of having them elsewhere in the nation, just like we brought all of our students to Silicon Valley in January. The goal of the program is to bring legal education to the students, and I wouldn't be surprised if that takes them all over the country and the world moving forward with the program. So the class time while they're on campus is very much like a conference. 1 to 2 hour blocks with breaks in between, but very intense. Students will find themselves perhaps arriving on campus prior to 8 a.m. to chat it up with me and drink some coffee and bagels that we provide, or drink some coffee and have some bagels that we provide. And between classroom time, networking, guest speakers, and studying, they might not find themselves leaving campus until after 8 o'clock p.m., going back to their local hotels. That's what they're like, or that's what the classroom experience is like on campus. They get a lot of the residential requirements that the ABA mandates in during these 4 immersion periods throughout the year, and then they go back home. They go back home to their lives, their families, their jobs, and they keep going. They keep working very, very hard. The type of instruction that we utilize when students are in, back home and away from Concord is both asynchronous and synchronous. So synchronous would be just like we're doing here. It's a live Zoom conference with the instructor and the students, and we have ongoing dialogue like we have here, but we try not to rely on that because there are such better tools out there for online teaching right now that synchronous content can be used for moments where a discussion has to happen or moments where face-to-face just wasn't a possibility, like if there's a global pandemic that prevents people from flying to Concord, New Hampshire. That being said, we adapted very well because of all of the expertise we had with the technology. So when we had to go remote, we knew exactly how to. Now, the majority of the content that a student's going to engage in when they're at home is going to be asynchronous, meaning just like Megan alluded to, it doesn't matter when you prefer to study. If you get home from work at 2 a.m. and your ideal window is between then and when your family wakes up for breakfast, you can watch lectures in both interactive and non. Our partners create some of the best instructional design I've seen in my professional career, as far as even having cartoon caricatures of instructors that walk you through the assignments. And there's replications of the Socratic method of teaching, where we have paid actors that kind of give true and false answers to questions that replicate the classroom experience. And then as students progress through those lectures, they're asked to respond in writing prompts that really replicate what it would be like to stop in the middle of the class and really work through a problem with their instructor. If they're looking for more time with the instructor, instructors post office hours where students can come in. And anytime we have office hours or synchronous content, we make sure that those are at times like later in the evening or throughout the weekend, times where students can kind of work around their busy lives. A typical week in asynchronous and synchronous online content is going to include assignments like discussion board posts on a text thread, responding to classmates, online quizzes, maybe a late night academic success program workshop. And they're doing this all while raising children and working high octane professions and coping with everyday life. Now I feel you all, our alumni, are going to play a huge role in the success of our hybrid graduates. With alumni spread globally and the hybrid students located throughout the nation, there are opportunities aplenty to make connections in your communities, even if those communities are very far away from Concord. Well, that's my perspective on the student experience, but no one better to hear from than an actual student. So I'd like to turn this over to Brett Feeney. Brett works for the USPTO as a supervisory patent examiner, and he also serves as the Technology Center lead for classification. So welcome, Brett.
Thanks. Can you hear me? Yep. All right. I needed some head nod or something to let me know. So
you're a little faint. You're a little faint.
A little faint?
Yep, there we go. That's
this?
better.
If I hold this up? All right,
That's
perfect.
better, yes.
So my name is Brett Feeney. I do work for the USPTO. Just to give you a quick background on where I come from the PTO. I was an examiner. I bounced around a little. I did chemistry. I did operations research because I'm a biophysicist by training, but I happened to pick up an MBA for the fun of it. And they said, oh, we're going to move you over to business methods. So you're going to work in operations research because it's all this crazy math. So I worked there for a little while, and then they said, you know what? We have a position for you because I did some technology transfer. They said, we're going to make you a senior policy advisor. What is a senior policy advisor? And I don't recall being a junior policy advisor. He said, okay, so you're going to be this liaison between this new department that we created, which is between the Secretary of the Department of Commerce and the Undersecretary of the Patent Office. So okay, sounds good. So I did that, and that was during the time of AIA. I did that for a couple of years, and then accidents happen. I shouldn't say that's too loud. We had a kid, and my wife also, unfortunately, got a little bit sick after that, so I had to move into a different position. I went back to examining. I said, this is predictable. And then a friend called me and said, you know what you're going to do now? We need a supervisor to come in and fix this unit. So that's what you're doing right now. So for the last 6 years, I worked in an art unit. But in addition to that, I got voluntold that I would be running classification. So we switched over classification systems from a US base to a global one, which I didn't realize was going to involve me traveling all over the world and doing meetings with people all over the world, which also means you have to adjust your schedule, very much like your synchronous or asynchronous program. It doesn't matter where people are, you're going to communicate. I also manage a distributed workforce. We're coast to coast. So I have very few examiners that actually work in the office. And even if they work in the office, because there's so many of us and because we're spread out, all of our meetings are online. We can share screens. We can basically drop the ball, hand the ball over in Zoom. People can mark up documents. And people can also check you in real time. So you're not allowed to make things up as you go along on the fly. They will challenge everything you have to say. And that's kind of the way that patent examiners work, as well as patent attorneys. So essentially making this transition to this program was not very difficult because we do most of our stuff online anyway. This just seems like my regular work job. Also, you know, as everyone's now in a hybrid program, because nobody's in a school, we were actually very well positioned, and I didn't feel any transition as we went to working from home versus not. The immersions, they're interesting. Like, I love going in. I'm clearly extroverted, if it hasn't come across at this point. I like interacting with people. I like getting to know them. I like hearing about them. But there's also this thing with immersion that happens where they say, we're going to try to cram in as much as possible in a weekend. So right now, I just started torts and property. Thank you for removing con law, because I thought we were going to have 3 courses. And I had 700 pages of reading that I'm doing this week. Well, I'm also managing a project with the EPO, and I'm also trying to manage my job. So as you can imagine, I'm not very well rested. And that's the way that immersions have a tendency to work, is you have to plan to basically not just hit the ground running, but you're hitting the ground in a dead sprint. So we definitely get a lot of the material. We have to get up to speed quickly on subjects, and we have to be ready to talk in class. The other thing is, most of our colleagues have worked in the legal profession or another profession for a long period of time, and they're more than willing to challenge your ideas on a discussion post. So you're not allowed to go and put something out there that you really didn't think through or you didn't research. They're going to call you on not supporting it, and they have the time to look it up too. So it's very much like, when you are in chat rooms and you're online, people have a tendency to definitely make sure that you are saying things as you should. So in terms of the hybrid program, just quickly, I would not have the opportunity to go to law school if it wasn't for it. Law school was something that I planned on doing after my kid, decided that I didn't exist anymore and was in high school, or maybe sooner. I don't know. He's only 8, so he still actually cares about my existence a little bit. But I assumed that was something I was going to do. I said, Georgetown has a great program. They have Saturday courses. This is something that is probably going to be the right fit. And I have been, I'd call it an intervention, is what happened to me. A number of people have pulled me into their office and said, you need to go to law school. You need to go to law school. Because there is a ceiling at where I work, as well as in patent law. It's just, if you're not a patent attorney, the highest you ever get to is an agent, and you're always going to be reporting to someone, no matter how good you are at your job and no matter how well you know case law. So a friend came to me and said, UNH, you're going to UNH. I said, what do you mean I'm going to UNH? I'm not moving to New Hampshire. He said, there's this hybrid program, you're going. So I ended up contacting Greg, and I said, it's been a long time since I took the LSATs. I know you have about a month before I can get a score, and I'm not sure I can get this in. He's like, well, we also take the GREs. And as I told Dan, I talked to him earlier today, I said, my GRE scores are older than most of your 1Ls. So he said, well, you can retake those. So I relearned geometry, and, thank God for YouTube and online learning. I was able to sort of fake my way through the math portion of that, which is sad considering how much math I do for my job. But I managed to get that done. And actually, I'd say before that, I took it home and I said, hey, to my wife, there's this law program at UNH. And she said, you're going to law school. I said, well, hold on, let's talk about it. She said, no, you're going to law school. So that was, the next month was getting everything together. I contacted, the people that I formerly had a relationship with. I worked for Dave Kapos. I had him write a recommendation for me. I had Brian Hanlon, who works for, or the head of OPLA. And I said, and I had another person that was a colleague that saw me develop a program right then. I said, hopefully that's just good enough to get me in. And I sort of skated by on my GREs, or well enough. Anyways, long and short, it's the program that gave me an opportunity, and consequently, it's really the only way I'm going to law school right now. I've also talked to a number of other colleagues in the program who have become very good friends. We talk every single day. We are constantly talking about the different subjects. We're constantly just saying, well, what did you think about this case, or how did you interpret it? And they shared similar stories. Law school wasn't going to happen for a lot of us if it wasn't for this program, which means we hit a ceiling in our career, and that was going to be it for a little while. So the opportunity is incredible. One last thing, I know I'm a little bit verbose, but I just want to share this because I think it's a fun story. I developed training for our entire work group, which is about 400 or so people. And we don't get legal training, like legal writing training or legal research training at the patent office. I can't believe I'm saying that and I'm being recorded, but basically we go through the fundamentals, everything that's in the MPEP, that's what we go by, and we look it up and we look for the answer in there. But a lot of times the answer is not in the MPEP, or a lot of times the fact pattern doesn't exactly match what we're looking for. So how do we research a case? How do we write a sort of an analysis based on analogy? How do I look at, am I more like this case versus this other case over there? So while I'm going to law school, I guess my work group didn't realize that they were also going to law school. So we got access to Westlaw, which we get through the PTO, where we took some courses, we did some basics with research, we're doing some analogy, I've developed some workshops there. I also have a friend, because I recognize that my legal writing is okay and much better after Professor Albrock, but not where I want it to be. My friend's an adjunct at GW, so he's helping me develop a curriculum for teaching legal writing. So we're very clear, we're making sure that we use IRAC or CREAC, writing things back to attorneys, writing for the board, making sure that we understand our audience. So we're already incorporating a lot of the things that I've learned, as well as I'm asking for people with more experience who have been practicing for a while to help develop those curricula so that we can bring that back to the PTO and make us better for the public as well as for the attorneys that we're interacting with. All right, I'm going to stop talking.
Thanks so much, Brett. You probably, that's so helpful to know. And also, it's just great to see you. We all wish that we could be together. We really value these immersion periods because we don't, get to see each other in person too often. So it's been hard during the pandemic to not be able to get together for those. But it's one of those things that I was thinking just yesterday, at the last immersion period when everyone was together, people were hugging each other. It was just bizarre. It was like everyone was just so excited. And they all decided that it was like a family reunion, but with people that you like, that you're actually choosing to be with. So I thought that was a great testament to the program itself and certainly to the people that are in it. Many of you who've attended UNH Franklin Pierce over the years find that your experience has been unique, at least from what I hear from you. You feel like you got to shape your education and you got to shape the school. I know one of the things that one of our professors, Marcus Hearn, was saying today in a meeting was, at the very beginning, for many years, students served on admissions committees, that students were really integrated in and always have been in our school over the years. Justice Conboy, I see you nodding your head, and I know you really helped shape the very creation of this institution. And in so many ways, our hybrid students in this first cohort are having that same experience. Brett mentioned, that he's not taking constitutional law right now. We had originally designed the program with an extra class in the summer, thinking maybe the summer was a slower time and it would, enable people to kind of have more classes or more hours. Well, through the experience, the students have helped us understand that for working professionals, especially those who have children, the summer is not a particularly relaxing time. Sometimes it's a more intense time. And so they have been part of kind of the iteration of the program. And we said, okay, well, maybe we need fewer hours in the summer term. It's also a shorter period of time. And then we'll add those in at a later point. So it's wonderful to see how this first class, and we expect the classes that come after, will also be pioneers in helping to shape kind of the legal education of tomorrow. We have one question that's come through, and for the rest of you, I have two things I need from you. One is that Ellen is going to give a toast in a little bit, so if you don't have a drink, you better get one. Number two, if you have questions, go ahead and start sticking them in the chat so we can make sure to answer what's on your mind. So the question that's come through right now is wondering, how have residential students responded to this program? And that was something, as we were designing the program, that we gave some thought to. And as we talked to the residential students about the program, I don't think I've really talked about this with anyone before, but, one of my concerns was like, would there be, our community has always been so close knit, but would this sort of create two separate communities? And so some residential students set a meeting with me, and they wanted to talk about the program. And so I kind of thought that's what they were going to be talking about, sort of this different community and what was it all about. Well, what they said was, we want to make sure that we have opportunities to interact with the hybrid students, and we want to make sure that we have, maybe we can set up, mentoring peer-to-peer relationships where, you're connecting, sort of matchmaking with students in the residential and the hybrid program. And that really was borne out when we took students to Silicon Valley. We had about half students from the residential program and half from the hybrid program. And they just, it just was something that clicked. They were asking for, everybody was giving advice and getting advice on different professors and classes to take, and kind of sharing the lowdown from both perspectives. And so for the immersion period that was supposed to happen during this pandemic, the one thing that students kept in both programs kept mentioning is that they wanted to have an opportunity where they could both get together. And so we had planned this spring during the immersion period, it was all kind of centered around this networking opportunity for an evening when both groups of students got to connect more. But from what I understand, especially for students who participated in the Silicon Valley experience, they're in touch all the time, sharing notes and input and, gossip, who knows. But that has been, seeing that those two communities come together into one community to benefit each other has been kind of magical, because they're going to be the clients, they're going to be the colleagues, they will, hire each other and as they go forward for a lifetime, just as many of you do as well. Okay, Chris Reed, you asked me a really long question. Okay, so between the hybrid program and Daniel Webster, UNH, I should have worn my reading glasses. We have a strong leadership position in evolving how legal education looks in the United States. How have other schools responded, and are we doing anything to help the Legal Academy move towards getting more comfortable with alternative delivery mechanisms, or learn how to build courses that take advantage of an online environment? I have to tell you, what a great question. That's something that really, especially right now, as the whole world is learning online at all different levels, there are so many schools that have reached out to me. And one of the things I can share is that, emergency remote online instruction does not look like well thought out online pedagogy, right? Like this is a whole separate kind of program where we aim for an interaction between the students and the online program every 2.5 minutes is kind of our goal as we do the instructional design. The students are engaged in so many different ways throughout the experience of the course. And I have found, the other thing that makes this program unique is the specialized nature of it. This is the first JD that has been approved by the ABA in a hybrid format that is in a specialized area of the law. And I think increasingly, as firms want students to be able to, young associates or junior associates to be able to hit the ground running, that specialization is something that is going to be increasingly valuable in the marketplace. So this is the first program of its kind, but it is not the last program of its kind. I think we're going to see more and more 5 years from now, 10 years from now. And if, just as a testament to that, last Friday, there was a state school that had been reaching out to me to say, we want to create something like this. How do we do it? And so in the last, I would say 2 to 3 weeks, I've met with 3 different schools that are interested in knowing how we've done what we've done. I was invited to talk to the whole American Association of Law Schools, the whole group of deans, to talk about moving legal education forward and how we do that. And I'm so proud that our school this isn't something we've been just doing for a few years. This is something that we've been on the forefront of legal education for over 40 years. And our school was really started in contrast to what other schools, have been doing. The quote I talk about all the time that is in our foyer from the founding dean, from Dean Biles, David says, the prospect of starting the law school struck me as a rare opportunity to stop talking about what's wrong with legal education and start doing something about it. And so this program is really the 2.0 or 3.0 version of, what was started so long ago to teach students the practical aspects of law, also in the areas of law that really matter. And two big areas for us really have always been social justice and public interest, and IP as well. So I think schools are really getting on board, and they're trying to figure out how to do that. The other thing that Chris mentioned in his question was the Daniel Webster Scholars Honors Program, which is a bar alternative program where students don't take the bar upon graduation, but essentially they're taking the bar exam for the last 2 years of law school. And it's a partnership between the New Hampshire Supreme Court, the Bar Association of the state, and the law school. And right now in particular, as states across the country are trying to figure out how in the world they're going to get their graduates licensed, New York just, when they opened applications for the bar, they're prioritizing applications from people who went to New York law schools. But what about graduates from all other schools that also have jobs in New York? How are they going to get access to the New York bar? The whole system for licensing lawyers has kind of come to a head. And so I think long term, we as leaders in legal education need to be thinking about those questions. How do we license attorneys properly? And what does that system look like? And, I think the DWS program is a great example of that. And our new director, Courtney Brooks, I'm sure will do a phenomenal job of being a part of that national conversation as we go forward. Another thing that I think is important to recognize that, the ABA has not been known for being particularly innovative as we think about moving legal education in new directions. And I think that that's part of the movement that needs to happen. And also I think it's starting to happen. We've had to adapt in the last 2 or 3 months in ways that we never would have thought possible otherwise. And so perhaps that will help be some kind of movement as we go forward. Jeff is asking, hi Jeff, it's good to see you. That if we're expecting that the school will operate remotely in the fall, or if it's too soon to have a sense yet. We are planning on face-to-face instruction in the fall, but we're making contingency plans for maximum flexibility. So the heads of each department across the school, including Dan Swiner, who spoke with you a few minutes ago, he is now not only the coordinator of our hybrid program, but he's also now the acting assistant dean for students, all students. And so he has not been sleeping either, Brett, so you guys can share your sleeplessness stories. Each head of each department over the last 4 weeks, we've been meeting weekly, discussing draft plans and how they interact with other departments. We'll be implementing social distancing. We're very fortunate to be part of a university system too that there are 11 committees across the university looking into very specific issues and getting input from a variety of stakeholders, and working with the State House and the governor's office as well. So that's been fantastic. They're also coordinating with the hospital system on testing, contact tracing, really setting up a set of conditions that we need to be able to operate face-to-face. We do anticipate that we will be we're implementing social distancing. So part of the class will probably be in person on Mondays, and then that part will be participating online on Wednesdays, and they'll switch. We're getting very creative to make sure that we're prioritizing the health and safety above all else for our students and also for the student experience. We're also fortunate, while we're fortunate to be part of the broader university, right now, we're also fortunate to be located about 45 minutes away from the main campus. So, our student body, we have maybe 300 students in the building maximum at any one time. We don't have residence halls. It's not we don't have 14,000 students with dorms. we don't have a huge gym. I often wish we had a huge gym, but right now there are some benefits to the way that the law school campus is structured that I think will really be a positive for us in this particular situation. So we're somewhat differently situated than some of the larger state schools that are wrestling with some of the same questions. So a great question from someone who is working in the Philippines in the IP department at a law school there, and is also an alum of our MIP program. The question is whether we consider collaborating with more foreign law schools. Absolutely, Ferdinand. We do that. We have collaborations with schools in India, in China. In fact, I just, on Tuesday morning, I woke up very early and was part of a seminar with one of our partner schools in India. So we had planned on doing a moot court in India with another partner school and developing a deeper collaboration. So we are open to that. I love that idea. We have had a global education in IP at Franklin Pierce for decades, and I'm looking forward to continuing that in really creative ways in the future. Okay, so Hannah's asking about the latest date for the LSAT for this year's application. Greg, we take the LSAT and GRE, so you can kind of take either one, but Greg, do you want to answer that specifically?
Absolutely. So the latest LSAT you could take would be it's going to be the week of July 12th. That's going to be the LSAT Flex that you can take at home. That will be the last one that we will accept for this fall. So for people that are taking the July LSAT or the GRE, what we recommend is to submit your application prior to taking the exam. That way we'll have everything in, because we're going to get a huge number of applications in right at the end of the cycle. And so by getting your application in before, kind of puts you at the head of the line there, so we can review your application, communicate an answer, and then there will be a very quick turnaround to classes starting August 19th. And so get everything in before and take that July 12th LSAT, or take the GRE, which at this point they're offering GRE at home through June 30th, although I'm sure they will probably extend that as well, especially now that LSAT has. So yeah, and I'll include my email address in the chat here, so you can feel free to reach out with any additional questions, and I'm happy to answer anything.
Thanks, Greg. Now I'm going to hand it over to Ellen. There is no one at this law school working today that better exemplifies the spirit of this school, and also is as beloved. I very quickly, when I first started meeting with alumni groups, and I talked to Ellen about being the alumni liaison, and she and I have worked together to build greater connections with the alumni and kind of revitalize those relationships. And at first I felt, sort of good that people were coming to events, before I realized that they were coming because Ellen was telling them to. And so I quickly learned that anytime Ellen tells you to do something, you just do it. No questions asked, because it's going to be the right thing to do. Ellen is a treasure, and I am so lucky to work with her every single day.
So I would like to end by toasting UNH Franklin Pierce Law School in its tradition of innovation, currently led by our fabulous Dean Carpenter. You can tell we enjoy working with each other. This and other new programs have really reinvigorated our tradition of being different, innovative, and ahead of the curve on legal education. We will continue to lead as we emerge from this health crisis and legal education continues to evolve. Thanks, all of you, for coming. If you have ideas for online programs, let me know.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you so much, Ellen.
Cheers. I think that's the end. unless people have questions. We're gonna post this. We recorded it online, so feel free to share it with colleagues and friends and alumni. So, thanks.